the summary of all the departments within the general fund and what the total expense is being requested. And then behind that is a detail of each department. And if you notice if you look at the summary list on the far left-hand side is a department number, like the first one for Board of Commissioners is 1110. If you go on to the detail, you could see that 1110 I've highlighted all the departments, but also you could see the 1110. So if you wanted to look at the detail of a particular budget within the general fund, just so you could navigate to that. And then the next section is the capital expenditures, what was requested and where we are right now with the budget. And behind that is other funds. And the funds that we're covering tonight are the ones that have employees, as opposed to I think we have 17 funds. We're not going to cover all of those. So I will just get started. So the budget process starts back in February when we have a budget kickoff meeting. Budgets are due from all the departments and constitutional offices in the middle of March or early March. And then throughout the month of April, a budget committee meets with the department heads or constitutional officers, and we go through their requests really line by line and discuss it. So when we first started out, all the requested budgets totaled almost 49.3 million, which was 3.6 million increase over the fiscal year current budget. That was a 7.92% increase. And at that time, projected revenues were really conservative, and I was just projecting 45.7. And I have changed that since Brian Bishop's presentation the other night on what he thought would happen with digest for the year. So at the time of the requested budgets, we had a shortfall of 3.5 million. After the budget committee met with everyone, we were able to reduce expenses by almost 1.9 million. So it's presented as a balanced budget, but what we're doing is just really plugging that difference of 1,585,000 into fund balance use, which you may or may not choose to do, but that is what is needed at this point to balance the budget. So we're left with the expenditures of 47.3 million and projected revenues of 47.3 million, which includes using almost 1.6 in fund balance. So how we got here was, again, it was the digest growth that was projected at 11%. And overall taxes, penalties, and interest, which is a section. If you go to your revenue section, your detail, that's the first classification. It lists all the details there. 11.5% overall increase. And what I did with the property tax revenue was I just brought it back a little bit from the tax assessor's projection to a 10% increase. And I'm also increasing 10% on what I think our actual revenues will be for this year as opposed to budget, because if you recall, last year, one thing we run into every year when we set the budget is we don't know what the new millage rate is going to be for that particular fiscal year. So when we set the budget for the fiscal year 24 budget, we set it using a 14.0 millage rate, and then we ended up doing a rollback rate to 13.139. So revenues would come in less than what we had set the budget as. So what I did is I took what they actually were and applied 10% to that to come up with the revenues calculated. And it's also based on the 2023 millage rate of the rollback rate of 13.139. And sales tax revenue, which is the local option sales tax, I do think that that will increase based on historic, looking at the last several years and over the past 12 months, the increase as it continues. So it's almost $400,000 increase going into fiscal year 25. The intergovernmental revenues, you'll see a very large decrease. And what that is when we received the Georgia homeowners tax relief grant, which was really property tax, all that was instead of the residents or the citizens paying that to us, the state paid that to us and they received a reduction on their tax bill. But from an accounting standpoint, I have to record that as intergovernmental revenue rather than property tax received. So on the last commissioners meeting, we actually did a budget amendment for that. So it shows now as a huge reduction, but that's all that is, because we haven't heard anything that would continue for the 24 taxes. License and permits, 105,000. It's not a lot of money overall with the budget, but it is a 48%, mostly due to building permits and inspections. Commissions and fees are expected to increase by almost 4%. Constitutional offices revenue is expected to decrease by just over 200,000, and the majority of that is the probate court decreased revenue from traffic fines. And this does take into account, as I said previously, of almost 1.6 million in fund balance use needed to balance the budget. And the revenues also include, we transfer in the interest earned on the ARPA. We move that over to the general fund, and also the hotel motel tax. If the 6% increase does go through, we would project that about 63,000 would come over to the general fund from that fund. So these are the expenditures, and the increase is 1.7 million, as I said previously. And the big item here is our payroll increases, the 2.5, which we've been trying to budget the last couple of years since the pay study. And just on the general fund, that's about a $572,000 increase. And that increase includes salaries, FICA, retirement, and retirement match. It also, the increase is from positions added, which would be 10 full-time positions and 2 part-time positions of about 555,000, and that's salary and FICA tax. And also the paramedic pay increases that I believe has been discussed with you. And that would be increases for anyone that is a paramedic, and all of those positions do hold, I don't know if it's a certification but they are paramedics as well as those positions. So they would be affected as well. Other expenditures, insurance, these are some reductions. The employee health, we're decreasing the claims budget. We just expect that in the new fiscal year, there's claims that will not be incurred. And same thing with the workers' comp, we're decreasing that by 205,000 for claims. And I should have said employee health, the claims, a reduction of almost 1.7 million just in claims and stop loss. The property, equipment, and vehicle and liability premiums, they still have increased by about 17%. And that at this point is an estimate. We haven't received the final numbers yet. So that's what we're predicting it to be, but there may be some adjustments there. But the deductibles will be staying the same as fiscal year 24, which is a 350,000 on vehicles and 250,000 on liabilities. On contracted services, there's an increase for a contracted lobbyist of 90,000. Special appropriations, we typically would fund the senior center by a line item in special appropriations. And we've actually, that's going to be reported in a new department, which reports to the county. And I'll explain that a little bit further on a different slide. The grant match, increasing it from the 100,000 to 150,000. Airport, 90,000. And cloud computing fees increases of 199,000. The district attorney had requested additional funding as well, and the draft budget includes partial funding of an ADA. They lost ARPA grant funding for that position, so it's an existing position. It's not a new position. It's just finding out where to fund it from. So they lost the ARPA funding on it, and so their budget would be increased to cover that. They also requested funding for a victims advocate position, which is an existing position, because they lost the CJCC, which is criminal justice grant funding. And that was 53,000, but we did not include that in the draft budget. And transfers out to special appropriations to cover all the requests for capital improvements, which is funded by the general fund. That would be a transfer out of $1.6 million. The 911 supplemental funding is 206,000, and gun range supplemental funding is 101. And most of that 101,000 is to cover the depreciation, which we've discussed at many meetings. That is a non-operating cost. Additional changes are the EMS fire split. There's two different funds which pay for EMS fire, which would be the general fund, and then also the unincorporated fire district. Each year, it's looked at how many annual fire calls there are, and we base that split based on that number compared to all calls. So in the current fiscal year, it's an 84-16% split between the two, 84% for general fund, 16% for the unincorporated fund. But based on the current annual fire calls, we're changing that for fiscal year 25 to be a 90-10% split. And by doing that, just doing that, that moves over 575,000 from the unincorporated over to the general fund as an expense. The senior center, again, we're setting, that's going to be reported under a new department. The way the senior center was run, it was managed by the PSA. They would receive the grant funding directly from the CRC, and the county would supplement any expenditure, any difference in the funding between the grant funding and what the actual costs were. And usually that was 50 to 75,000 that the county would be contributing. So all we're doing is the county would then receive the grant money and just run the department. So the net cost would be really no different than it has been in the past. The JDA increasing their funding by 66,000 to 750,000. And going back to fund balance, the use for fiscal year 25, as this is presented, is almost 1.6 million. And in fiscal year 23, at the end of the fiscal year, the fund balance was just slightly over 17 million. But in our current budget, we have almost 1.9 million of fund balance used budgeted. So if all of that is used, that would bring our fund balance down to 15,137,000. So that going into fiscal year 25, if we were to use all of that fund balance, that's going to come off the 15 million. We're still going to be above the 25%, but each year we keep bringing that down lower and lower. This is just a chart showing the insurance premiums because it has been, such large increases. So from 2017 till now, for going into the 2025 fiscal year, it's 141% increase. And that's just for the premiums, property liability, auto, and equipment. And the new positions that are included in the draft budget are on the left side is general government, 3 positions, project manager, an audiovisual engineer, and a GIS technician. Animal control, 2 part-time kennel techs. Code enforcement, 1 new officer. At EMS, 3 firefighters and 1 training officer. At EMA is taking their part-time position, EMA specialist, from a part-time to a full-time position. And in Public Works, a right-of-way coordinator position. And on the right-hand side, the ones that are not included are facilities. Initially, it was an administrative assistant, park maintenance, and a maintenance tech. There was 5 positions they requested, and none of those are included. For the sheriff's office, there was 14 positions requested and no additional funding, but the discussion was that if they were to fill, they would use their existing vacancies to fill, say, the nursing position. And then if all of the vacancies are filled, we would do a budget amendment if they needed to hire new, like say, new jailers on top of, but they would have to fill those vacancies first. And then we would come back and ask for a budget amendment. Let's see, EMS fire, they had actually asked for 9 positions. And so this is only funding 3 and 6 would not be funded. And then EMS, or I'm sorry, the EMS radio, that's supposed to say EMA radio. So emergency and the radio communication. They had requested full-time positions for an EMA specialist and an EMA radio specialist. And again, on the left-hand side, there was a part-time position that was made full-time. And this is just a summary of the revenues in the general fund by classification. And it's really just going from 45.6 million to 47.4 million. I'm rounding, so that's a difference of $1,728,904, or a 3.79% increase in the budget. And then on the far right, you could see how each of those classifications, the percent to the actual total. So the very largest percent, of course, is the property taxes collected, and then also the loss that's included on that first line that says 31 taxes, penalties, and interest. So it's lost and property tax. So that makes up 80% of the revenue received.
And Nancy, I couldn't remember if you had mentioned this early on, but this is all based on the 2023 millage rate, correct?
Yes, yes, yes.
I
it
couldn't
is.
remember if you had.
I did mention it,
Okay,
yes.
Good, thank you.
Right. And that's the problem that we run into again each year, that we're setting a budget before we know what the millage rate is. So, let's see. So these are just the different, I guess, not classification, well, I guess we'll call them classifications, they're actually called functions, but of within the general fund. So general government, which makes up all of those departments on the left-hand side, which is Board of Commissioners, tax assessor, insurance, finance, facilities, et cetera. So if you look at the increase decrease column, the big outliers there are the big reductions, of course, to employee health benefits and workers' comp. And that's offsetting a lot of the increases. So it doesn't look like we have a really big increase because of those really large offsets. And this is the courts. There's just really, that's mostly increases, the 2.5% increases to salaries and just some inflationary. There's no real big changes there. This does include the district attorney, though. You can see that his difference there is 73,000. And again, that includes that partial funding of the ADA that they lost funding for. And this is public safety. And the largest outlier there, of course, is EMS. But again, a big part of that is that shifting of the percent split between this and the unincorporated fund. That makes up about 575,000 of that total. But of course, then there's also the 2.5% increase of salaries and the paramedic increases. And for patrol division and also the jail, those really just reflect a 2.5% increase on current salaries. Just public works, just minimal changes there. And health and welfare, the big change there is you'll see that's where we're going to classify the senior center under health and welfare. So that's establishing that department of the 218,719. And then there's just really minor changes to the other departments. Culture and recreation, it's just the two libraries and very little change there. Planning and development, the increase to budget is 7.37%. And the bigger changes there is code enforcement, and that's adding that one position, and the JDA, Joint Development Authority, that's increasing their funding by $66,000. So at the very bottom is the grand total, which I stated before, the increase to the budget is 1.7 million or 3.79%. And again, that increase is being offset by those very large decreases to the claims for employee health and workers' comp. So this summarizes the general funds for revenues and expenses. It's really just a summary of what each of those separate slides. But on the far right, you could see as a percent to budget, under expenses, general government makes up 36% of the expenses, public safety 43%, the courts almost 8%, and the rest are much smaller. So capital expenditures, we had a request of 9.2 million in capital expenditures. And that is detailed in your book too. You could see the list of what was requested and what's included here. The first item for the draft is the capital improvement fund. And just always remember, this is completely funded by the general fund. And there will be no fund balance. It will have minimal fund balance for, proceeds carried forward from fiscal year 24. The majority of that will be used up in what has been approved expenditures. So this is just funding all the new requests for the year. So it'll be fully funded by the general fund, 1.6 million. ARPA, funding, that's 268,000. That is an approved project for Sheriff's Office vehicles. It's the first full year of the lease payments on the, I think, round 3 of the enterprise leases. The SPLOST would be using $905,000. 192 of that is for the existing lease, round 1 of enterprise leases for the Sheriff's Office. Almost 680,000 is for IT equipment and upgrades, and that would be using the excess SPLOST. I know we're still in discussions on SPLOST 9, which also overlap into discussions on SPLOST 8, and what will be left over for like each of the county and the cities to use as just their own expenses. But that would be using almost all of our portion from one of the scenarios, probably one of the more final scenarios that we had come up with, but that could change potentially. And then it was 33,500 for the library. The library is a countywide project, and there is money set aside for that. And this was just some items that they had requested, some furniture and fixture replacement within the library, and that would cover that. I think the remainder of that would be used for the parking lot, but we're not really to that point of the budget yet. So the total comes at requested 9.2 million, and the total here is 4.5 million. And in your books, this is, I wanted to get this up on the PowerPoint as well, but it's for each of the different departments or constitutional offices, what they requested and what is included in the draft and where the funding would be coming from for each one of those. I could go through would you like me to go through the list? Just
Yeah, I think.
kind of one at a time? All right. So for Public Works, they're requesting 6 vehicles and a lowboy trailer, and that could be funded or would be funded by the unincorporated tax district, and that totals, the vehicles are $260,000 and the lowboy trailer $65,000. The next group is information technology, and this would all be funded again by SPLOST 8 with the excess funding from the year 6. And that's a physical server infrastructure upgrade of $425,000, network security enhancement, $116,796. UPS replacement for critical infrastructure, $42,000. Secure time server upgrade, $8,000. Network infrastructure renewal, $34,000, and technology refresh, $54,000. The director of IT had also requested replacement for AV equipment for juvenile, magistrate, and probate court, but we think that that would be something that could be done in fiscal year 26. So that'll come up again then, but it does not need funding in fiscal year 25. The tax assessor had requested a vehicle, and that's not included, and also a copier, and their department could actually has excess funding available in fiscal year 24. So they're working on getting the copier now rather than requesting it in the next fiscal year. The Main Point Clinic, this was for expansion to the gateway. This is also included under the facilities budget, but to a much greater extent under the facilities budget. So it was not funded for Main Point Clinic. But under facilities, the items that are included is, and this is all funded through capital improvement, again, which is indirectly funded by the general fund. So for facilities, the annex building renovations, $150,000. Sheriff's substation gate, replaced the motor for $5,000. Fire station 12, city sewer connections of $285,000. Fire station 15 roof replacement, $75,000. Fire station 15 siding, $50,000. Fire station 16 roof, $75,000. Gateway woodbine roof ceiling for $100,000, and the senior center carpet and expansion of $15,000. So that would all be under capital improvements under facilities. And the items that are not included that were requested, facility building roof seal, new park division, vehicles, facilities master plan. Those you could probably look in your book to see what was not included. The next office is the sheriff's office. And what would be funded are the existing leases, again, through ARPA for 268,452. And the following items are approved or included through capital improvements, which would be computer replacements of 9,500, computer replacements and patrol laptops of 78,408, security system for the Armory Special Ops K-9 building, 35,186. And the sheriff's office had requested 18 new vehicles totaling 1,260,000. And what's included are 10 vehicles at 700,000. So all of those were through the capital improvement fund. The next three are through jail and staffing fund. And that's a fund which receives its revenue through the courts. And it's a special revenue fund. So the money has to be spent on the jail. So 50,000 to paint the inside of the jail. So that would be really for the paint and supplies. And I believe the inmates would be doing the painting. A covered trailer for inmate work detail for 10,000, mower, a scag mower for 15,000 for the inmates detail, and existing leases. Well, that was all jail and staffing. And the next item would be SPLOST 8. And this is something that's been previously approved as a SPLOST 8 expenditure, which is leases for 15 vehicles. It was really the round one enterprise vehicles, and that's 192,177. And the remaining items on the list were the ones that are not included to be funded. The next department is EMS and fire. The first two are through capital improvement funding, which is Lexipol. I'm not quite sure exactly what that is. You know what that is? Okay, Lexipol. Lexipol. Somebody knows what that is, and I think it's important.
It's their softwares for training and policy and procedure implementation.
Thank you.
Throughout the whole department.
Thank you.
Is that right, Chief? Okay, thank you.
Hydraulic tools, 37,687. That's out of capital improvements. And then the unincorporated tax district, again, fire items for the fire department can be funded through that. And this is very specific to the fire rather than EMS. And that would be their tankers for 405,000. And then an engine / pumper truck, whatever you want. It's kind of interchangeable engine or pumper. And right now we have a quote from Fireline of 424,796, and then about 50,000 to fit it up would bring it up to about 475,000. And that would be funded through the unincorporated tax district. And the next set of departments are, well, magistrate court, magistrate and probate also had requested copier, and we identified that they do have excess in their current budget. So we're going to order that now, fiscal year 24. Animal control, a Horizon structure that's not included for 200,000. EMA, a vehicle is not included. The county library, these were the items under SPLOST 8 that I discussed previously. Those are the items that furniture and fixtures that they were looking for. And then the coroner had requested a powered stretcher, but EMS has identified a spare that they'll be able to provide to him. So that will not be purchased. So the totals are requested 9.2 million, and included here is 4.5 million. And this is for the enterprise fund for solid waste and Two Rivers gun range. And for solid waste authority, it would be purchasing a compactor for 452,000. And then of course the cell 5 construction of about 3 million, and that's an estimate. But we have received the GFA loan for that. And this, I believe the construction has not begun, but the architectural and engineering has begun. The hot water pressure washer, 12,500, a Komatsu dozer for 575,000, and a generator replacements, and that's multiple generators for 50,000. And then the other items, the 2 vehicles, the utility vehicle and modification of MWD&O is not funded. And then on Two Rivers, there were no requests for capital requests. So then the next area is curbside collections. And the revenues there, of course, come from the trash collections and its contracted services through Meridian. And we're really not projecting any kind of increase there. I believe they did receive a rate increase, but kind of taking a harder look at the numbers, we feel as though this is more in line with what the actuals will be. So it's actually a slight reduction. 911, which is the majority of the funding is commissions and fees, and that's the $1.50 that you pay on your cell phone and telephone bill. And that money goes to the carrier who remits it to the state, and the state then remits it to the county, and it's used to partially fund the 911 operations. So that's 1.2 million. And then the other financing sources of 606,185, that's a combination of fund balance use and also, I believe it's about just over 200,000 of supplemental funding from the general fund. So that totals 606,000. And then overall, just there's an overall a reduction in costs. And the unincorporated service district, that we've talked about that before previously, and the revenues from here come from property taxes in the unincorporated tax district of the county, as well as the insurance premium tax. And that's included under taxes, penalties, and interest of 3.3 million. And actually, I'm having difficulty reading that one. So that would be 3,286,625. So that's the property tax and the insurance premium tax. Again, unincorporated tax district is also funded by other financing sources, and that's fund balance use. And that's typically used to fund the capital items. The M&O is covered fully by the property tax and the insurance premium tax. So on the expenditure side, the fire service district, again, looks like a very large decrease, but that decrease is coming from that shift of the split from 84-16 to 90-10. So a lot of that funding that would last year, or the current fiscal year, has come out of the unincorporated that's shifting over to the general fund. Not really a reduction in expenditures. It's just how it's split on the funding. The next item is Public Works, and that is from M&O standpoint, that is the right-of-way mowing, but we also purchase capital equipment from the unincorporated tax district for Public Works, and that's reflected on that schedule. And then also out of unincorporated was the funding for recreation, which is the funding for the PSA operations. And that's showing as a reduction of 103,000. And mostly that's because I had adjusted the budget in the current fiscal year for the Jumbotron for $100,000. And of course, going into fiscal year 25, we won't have that expenditure. So that's the reduction that's reflected there. The next area is the Solid Waste Authority. And the biggest increase there is really recognizing the revenue we're going to receive from the loan. That's how we really have to record it. So it comes in as if it's revenue, but it really is a liability. So just for balancing purposes, I'm just reflecting it there as revenue, but that is the GFA loan. And from the expenditure side, the capital outlay, the big item there is the construction of that new cell and the capital items that were listed previously on another slide. And then Two Rivers Gun Range, the commissions and fees, which is just the fees to use, have gone up just a little bit, about $5,000. And overall, it still does require a transfer in. That 101,636 is supplemental funding from the general fund. And it's really to balance the books for non-operating expenses of depreciation. And their expenses have actually gone down just slightly. So overall on SPLOST 8, this is just county projects. It's not really the county-wide. The road projects, we have $1.6 million remaining. The Public Works Fleet Building has 2.7 million remaining. The vehicles for the Sheriff's Office Enterprise, we still have the 192,177 for fiscal year 25 funding. The furniture and fixtures for the library and the information technology that I had talked about earlier. And then there are other special revenue funds that are not included in this. It's very specialized where the money's coming from and how that we spend it. Like say, for example, the law library, the revenue there comes from the courts and it must be spent on items for the law library. Jail and staffing, again, that money comes from the courts. It has to be spent on jail items. So I don't have numbers for that tonight, but there's a lot of, might be a little overload at this point. So, really just, do you have any questions?
Anybody got any questions for Nancy?
Capital expenditures, the ambulances, the 7 total, is Station 5 still one of those? Sure.
And the ambulances are really targeted for SPLOST 9,
Right. I see.
which would be fiscal year 26.
Just want to make sure
Yes.
that that one was included. And then on the nurse for the sheriff's office, let's see, where is that? I had it marked. Anyway, that's a new position, am I correct?
Well, he can hire a nurse
Right.
and pay her
Right.
whatever he wants. Then once he gets all his positions that are vacant now filled, then we can look at doing a budget amendment to add staffing.
But I think those 2 positions are filled right now, aren't they? Using other funding, or just one of them? One is filled.
My question was, is there any way to use drug money for any of that? I mean, if we've got the opioid money, is that a possibility? If you got 33% of your inmates basically are, have mental illness and, those kind of issues, can you use that money for that?
I would say that that person's job duties would have to be specific to that use. So it couldn't be just a general nurse who sometimes would treat somebody with a drug problem. I think it could be investigated further, but I would just say it's very specific on how we have to use the opioid settlement money.
Because I know there's 40,000 left in that still.
I don't know how much.
There's more than that.
The commissioners, the only thing I would really kind of caution you on is if you apply the opioid money to staffing, that is a diminishing fund. It won't always be there. So, just know that if you do that, then eventually that money's going to run out and then you're going to have to just account for that position through some other means. So just kind of know that going into it.
Okay, just a question.
Right now, we're using the opioid money to fund the drug court.
Not all of it.
No. Anybody want to make any cuts?
Yeah, and I think really tonight was just to kind of get the other 3 commissioners, those that are on the budget committee, get you some information, some knowledge on where we stand right now. Obviously, the budget's still in draft form. This is not what we would consider the proposed budget. It is somewhat balanced using fund balance, but that is not the direction we really want to go in. I think we would really ideally like that number to go down to 0, but I don't know if that's going to be totally possible depending upon what you all would like to do. I think we've raised the revenues as high as we can possibly raise them. And that's, again, using the 2023 millage rate. I think if we're looking at taking the rollback this year, we may not fully receive based off of the 2023 millage rate.
Right, why not receive that amount of revenue?
Right. So a lot of things to consider. I know it's a lot of information to throw at y'all all within less than an hour. So if you do have any questions, concerns, please feel free to reach out to myself or staff, and we will make sure we get you that information. There's a lot of detailed information that goes with any of this, so if anything really piques your interest or piques your mind, questions about why is this number the way it is, or why is this increase so high? If we did not answer it this evening, please feel free to reach out and we will make sure you get that information.
All right. Well, we got some homework to do, and, everybody needs to look over it and make their suggestions. If they want to cut or add anything else.
And we will be back here, I believe, next Monday at 5 PM for another budget work session. So I think if we really want to, allow you all to take a week, or just under a week to study this, ask any questions that you may have, we'll come back next Monday afternoon at 5, and then from there, we will kick off any potential cuts that we can possibly make.
No? Anybody from the board got anything else? All right, we'll close this work session and we'll start back up at 6 o'clock. Board meeting, join us for an invocation by Commissioner Brandt, then join us for the pledge.
Please stand. Father God, we love you. Father, we come to you seeking wisdom and guidance as we go about making decisions for the benefit of all families down. Father, just continue to bless those and protect those who serve, whether they be near or abroad. For this we pray in the name of the Lord.
Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call, Katie, let's do roll call.
All commissioners are present.
All right. Can I get an adoption of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
You got a first and a second? This will bring us to our first public comment section. We're going to limit it to a total of 30 minutes and 3 minutes each. So we got anybody registered, Katie?
Yes. Mike Lake.
Good evening. My name is Michael Lake and my address is 179 Nature's Bounty Trail, St. Mary's, Georgia. 3 minutes. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Mic check 1, 2, 3. Okay. I don't have my guitar, so I'll go. At 3 minutes, this will be quick. I'll try to make it quick. Kind of want to give a brief history of us. We took over the soccer club as an entity in the 1990s to provide year-round soccer for the kids of Camden County. Since then, we've continued to grow. We played 2 seasons. As much as we've had as many as nearly 500 kids registered for a season. As you can imagine, for a all volunteer organization, that gets a little busy. We have quickly moved forward as under our developmental model of players. In the past, we've had kids go to college. We've had kids play high school. We just recently had our first professional player come out who's still a youth player. And he plays at South Georgia Tormenta, but we are moving forward that kind of model. We are a grassroots all volunteer organization. All of us are 100% volunteers. We don't get paid. The only people we pay are our referees, and quite frankly, we don't pay them enough, but we do the best we can. We keep the prices low for everybody. We generally don't, we have not, to my knowledge, at least since I took over in about 2018 or 2017, we have not turned anybody away, and we will not turn anybody away. Roughly about 2018, when Lowe's Consulting came in, we started looking at the complex and making some improvements. Mr. Bryan, I think you were involved in that. I know Mr. Casey was. We had multiple discussions with the new PSA director at the time about how to proceed. With providing at least trying to make it revenue neutral. I don't know we will ever get there because of cost. We do the best we can with a contract with the PSA. About 16 months ago, I think we began kind of taking a hard look at the complex due to just general deterioration, unfortunately, due to some things. And we've worked diligently to work on a project to reinstate the complex to its for beauty, so to speak. We are concerned about injuries that we've already had. Our main concern is the playing surface and how things go. Everything you see out there, the equipment is ours. We bought everything you see. All the work is done by us volunteer. The netting around the thing. I climbed up on a ladder in 25-mile-an-hour winds one time to secure the netting around the field, and that was a lot of fun, as you can imagine. Currently we're all volunteers working towards making it better, and that's what we really want to do. We want to make life better. We believe in making life better. We believe in providing soccer. That's what we're about. We're not about making money. We don't, as I told some of my competitive parents, we don't want your money. We want your kids to develop a love of soccer in a safe, nurturing environment. And the complex is part of that. And right now, unfortunately, it's deteriorated to the point to where parking is a concern.
Time's up.
Okay.
Thank you. Next.
Jonathan Goslin.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Jonathan Goslin, resident of 437 Lighthouse Circle, Woodbine, Georgia on Harriet's Bluff.
I've lived in Camden County since 2008, and my children have been going to school here since 2015. My son started playing soccer for the PSA in the same year and has been an active participant in the Camden Soccer League. And since then, my daughter followed his lead in that same league since 2020. We're a military family who deals with unique challenges similar to other families in this room, but we were brought together in a community of welcoming individuals over a commonality of interest in the game of soccer. We've used the soccer complex for years, and its conditions continue to deteriorate due to the maximized use of fields by all age groups. We've advocated for funding to fix our fields for years, and we finally reached the light at the end of the tunnel to offer better conditions for our children and to build their physical athleticism, social skills, and gain opportunities for higher education through athletic scholarships. That is until yesterday when a sudden stop put a barrier around hard work and community involvement. We have an opportunity for meaningful expansion that builds on the character of our small community by not only expanding on our complex to increase its participant capacity, but to prove to voters and parents of this county that we are not stuck in an antiquated loop of questionable decisions and talking points based on thought processes of years past. Our son is starting to compete on a higher level of play, and it forces us to explore other soccer clubs that do not have the capacity and quality that suits the needs of large tournaments where scouts seek out talent. We do this in parallel with our participation with Camden Soccer, and it's taxing not on just military parents, but all parents. As we look at JFC, Florida Elite, and Savannah soccer club complexes during our travel, we completely understand why we cannot have a large tournament here. It's due to a lack of funding and quality care. The obvious opportunity cost of not investing in our fields today is a clear loss in revenue towards local business and infrastructure, not to mention our children. If we decide to invest in the land adjacent to the complex, you have no credible generated forecast of positive revenue rates over the long term. The investment opportunities in our children and their crucial development are limitless. The parents and advocates you witness here in support of the complex expansion is a great example of Federalist Paper number 10, a document I encourage all elected officials to read. You're witnessing a faction of citizens acting in the best interest of the community to better our town and our collective character. This town and its children would truly appreciate meaningful action from our commissioners that allocates the funding and attention we owe to our children and future. Please strongly consider this opportunity to change the overtones we read in the local paper about our elected officials. Make the right choice and invest in our people, please, and thank you.
Thank you.
Ben Dahl.
My name is Ben Goff and I live at Harriet's Bluff. Back in, I believe it was 2022, I had my first conversations with Mr. Lake of the Camden Soccer Club. I believe that might have been the time. And at the time, and I believe it still exists, that the soccer complex was in a very poor maintenance condition. And I don't know that it's changed a lot. I would like to say at this point right now that my partner, if you will, is a soccer mom, has been, and she warned me repeatedly, be careful of soccer moms. Well, it's been quite a few years since she was actually a soccer mom, but she knows the process. She was with me this weekend out at the what's being called the mini golf course. What I would call it at this point is a work in progress. I would like to say at this point, there is nothing that any of us that are associated with that, and I'm lately come to it. I met with folks back in 2022, and I started research of that property out there, and I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt that it is a tangled web chasing back through the history of that property out there. There's some stuff that really makes me wonder, but I won't go there today. However, the little 1.9 acres that contains 22 different varieties of plants out there that are not native or trash plants. They were planted. There are multitudes of boulders out there in that little mini golf course complex. And that's the highest waterfall in Camden County, or used to be. I have pictures of a tournament that was conducted there in April of 2015. And then the county assumed that property in September of 2015. And there it went to hell in a handbasket, right along with the soccer complex. If you go out there right now today, it was there at lunchtime anyway, ample parking. And I really and truly don't think the parking is as much of a problem as the fact that the complex has been allowed to deteriorate for whatever reason. Based on what I've seen, it all began right along with the rest of the PSA issues that occurred or were discovered in 2018. I'm all in favor of soccer upgrades. Thank you.
I apologize if I say your last name wrong. Quinn Nateski? I got it? Okay.
Hi, hi, my name is Quinn Gusser Nutowski. I live in Camden or Kingsland, Georgia. And I think that we should expand the facilities to make it bigger so more kids can play in the facilities and we don't have to have a match at, like 5 minutes after a match. And we have to expand parking because if you go in like the heart of the season, you'll see that there'll be like cars parked outside of the parking lot, and that's not like and it's like you have to go kind of far to get to the field, and you also because we need to expand facilities for more kids to be able to play, because if one kid is really good at soccer, they probably won't go play at Camden County for a Camden County team because they're really good at soccer. They'll probably go down to JFC and or for Florida Elite team to play against more better opponents. But if we have a better facilities to get better players who can play on the same level as that kid, then we can compete with JFC, the Florida teams, and that. And if kids who play soccer aren't given good resources, they won't perform as good as kids who are given good resources. And US soccer is not the best soccer team in the world because we don't have the best facilities in the world. And if we can expand our soccer field, it would probably, one player could probably make a slight difference.
Thank you. Jared?
That was my son. He covered everything I wanted to say.
Okay, gotcha.
Thank you.
All right, next is David Smith.
Hello, David Smith, 134 Dogwood Circle, St. Mary's, Georgia. I promise you I won't be as good as that good gentleman. First off, I was a soccer dad. I've been to that facility over 20 years ago. I'm also a miniature golf dad. I took my kids there. They enjoyed it. I saw their families enjoying it. Unfortunately, it was left to rot. Since we've had people go out there and they've been working on restoring that miniature golf course. As far as my understanding, that's what this meeting's about. For some reason, people seem to think it's an either or. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to read How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, written in the 1930s. Very good book. A lot of great leaders have read it. And if you haven't read it, I recommend you do. But one of the biggest premises in that is finding win-win situations. This is a situation, in fact, again, I don't know why we're meeting here. It was made in some of the discussions I've seen to be that some people are against the parking. No, I know parking's terrible. It was terrible 20 years ago. In fact, I think, after a good rain, you'd have puddles that you had to try and avoid. Unless if I wanted to get back at Cody, then I'd drag him through it just for a little parental, revenge. I'm joking about that. But, no, the parking needs to be improved. The field needs to be improved. But there's no reason that both things can't be done. A little ingenuity. And I asked one of the commissioners, do we have a plan, a design yet? No. It hasn't even been voted on yet. So how can we look at the plan and say, yeah, we do better here? I've walked out there. There is plenty of places without touching miniature golf that could be used to expand on parking. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Smith.
Cody Smith, I live out in Point Peter, in St. Mary's. Just to echo what my dad said, I grew up, I played soccer out there, at that soccer complex. I had a birthday party at that miniature golf course. And I don't think it's fair that the county commissioners would force us citizens to choose between either or. Especially if we're still in the planning stage, if we're waiting for SPOS to get approved to get the funding to even make these improvements to the soccer complex. I'd like to see, both entities be incorporated into that idea, especially if we're asking the voters to vote on it. Thank you.
Mr. Brian Behrman?
Pardon me, everything I was gonna say has already been said.
Okay. Dr. Don Gray?
My name is Dr. Dawn Gray, St. Mary's, Georgia. 9. That's the number of suicides that have taken place in Camden County in 2024, as compared to 6 in 2023. With the 10th one that was life flighted down to Shands, and thankfully he's recovered with minimal brain damage. This young man right here said what was incredibly important, and that is the significance of extracurricular activities. Healthy, appropriate activities. Sadly, that's not what we have in Camden County. This is a contrived controversy between two activities, between people from all different facets of life who care about the well-being of our community. This isn't about whether it should be a golf course or whether it should be a soccer field. This is about calling our representatives accountable and to task to ensure that we provide outlets that are healthy so that those numbers of suicide and other rates of mental illness don't continue to climb. I have heard that there are families in Camden County and all around that can afford their children, and you should be able to continue to do that, to put them in activities that cost money. That's not what we're asking for, and we're not asking for funds from you, from the county. We've gone out there on our own. We went around initially to try and find a park, the worst park in Camden County, to show that the citizens can rely not on us and not on just our, government workers, but that we can make a difference of ourselves. We landed at that golf course. It provides an opportunity for free access for all. It's not a matter of anyone has to pay a membership or a fee to get in. Yes, we have a golf course, mini golf course out at Crooked River. Even there's money that costs to get in. Ben Casey, you asked me Saturday, Ron, when the poor kids get here, pleased to tell you that we already have a relationship with regional coaches, and they're excited to help us in that endeavor. In addition, we have 2 taxi services that are committed to providing discounted rates to any family that wants to travel to that mini golf site and from that golf site. So once again, we have a contrived controversy. This isn't about whether or not we should have a golf course. The families who participate in golf should have already had their needs met, and they still should. But however, that mini golf course and the volunteer hours that should have been put out there should be allowed to do it with an MOU where SALT carries the general and accident insurance for 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Debbie Earl? Okay. Ricky Manning?
Rick Mann from Bullhead. What I want to say has already been said, but I'm going to say it again. Why are we even here? This is about the dumbest thing to ever have a meeting about. This county is capable of a great soccer complex and this putt-putt course for these kids and for these citizens. What are we in here arguing for, folks? Nobody's saying nothing about funds for the soccer complex. I completely agree with it. I've got a pile of family and a bunch of them play soccer out there. And I'd love to see it get fixed. But are we gonna tear down another asset that they're trying to do for citizens for free? When there's other alternatives? Is this just being vindictive of what's going on here? Somebody needs to explain. Anything that is for the good of our kids and our citizens should be looked at and should be implemented, period. Especially not costing taxpayers money. I don't get y'all folks. I know you hate me because you threaten me all the time. Now you're gonna threaten other people because you hate them. Y'all, I don't know what to do with y'all. This meeting should not even be here, period. Thank you.
Brian Levy, I'm sorry. Did I say that right? Levy? Okay, Levy.
Ryan Levy, 410 Powderhorn Road in St. Mary's. I feel like I walked into a bit of a hornet's nest. I'm a father of four. I've got a 1-year-old and a 10-year-old. We live here in Camden County. We're not going anywhere. So everything that we're talking about with the soccer complex, with the golf course, it's going to affect me for a long time to come, and that's why I came all the way up here. And my notes went out the window. But I've spent 12 years working in Parks and Recreation. So when I heard about the renovations, I was thrilled. I hope the soccer club, I coached this past season. My kids are in the soccer club. I'm hoping I'm speaking on behalf of everybody here. I was thrilled, right? Obviously, I would love to see the layout. I guess it's probably a good thing that we don't have one approved yet because of that we're all here. But the biggest thing I understand is the parking. I've heard parking, right? I've been a sports coordinator both at the college and at Kings Bay, so I've done scheduling. Our biggest problem right now is we don't have lights. That was mentioned. One of the first things that was going to happen with the renovation is we're going to get lights. Well, if we're going to get lights, then that means we're going to be playing games under the lights, which means that our parking problem has already solved itself before we've ever even paved the existing parking lot. All right, if we're going to be able to be playing games at 6, 7, and 8 o'clock at night, then that means we don't have to schedule games, as someone said, 10 minutes after the next game. Right? Our parking problem is a problem because you've got the teams that are there and the teams that are about to play 10 minutes after the game. So you've got multiple teams showing up at the exact same time. So yeah, you do have a parking problem for about 20 minutes before those teams leave and your other teams start their games. But again, if we're going to put in lights, that solves the problem. Well, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we're getting additional fields out there. I don't think we're expanding the size of the soccer complex. So we're still at 5, 6, 7, 8 fields at a time that could potentially play. But again, we've already expanded the game times and you don't have to worry about parking as much. If we paved the existing parking lot and actually put in parking lots that are to standard versus the current situation, which has been hand-painted lines by a great committed volunteer group, I'm not taking anything away from that, but I've seen cars that have taken up 3 spots just because of the way they've parked. And that's no fault of them. But again, if you actually paved and took care of the parking lot that's currently there, I think you'll see a lot more parking spaces. I'm assuming if you're going to spend $4 million, you're going to get rid of the PSA dump that's there. There's more parking spaces. So there are actionable items.
Rob Moore.
Robert Moore, 509 Westgate Circle, St. Mary's. I have no kids that play at the soccer complex, but I have worked with many parents that have their dedicated children in that. And I hear anywhere from 4 to could be 800 kids are active, invested in these soccer leagues. Now, I would be shocked if there was 100 active mini golfers in Camden, because they're just blowing out Crooked River State Park. Because I go down there and I have to brush off the leaves and the pine straw, because I guess those golfers, they just play right through the rough as it is. So if people say that it was active in 2015, sure, I'll believe them. To me, it was not on my radar since about 2010, maybe 2012. But it sat there in its language for the better part of a decade. Now here in the 11th hour, political theater has crept up. You have people trespassing, trying to do a good thing, and invoking the name of a since departed deputy, of naming it after him. To me, I just think it's trying to play on the emotional strings of people, of the public, just thinking you guys are just ready to crank up that caterpillar and bulldoze it. Well, it's sat there this long and it's grown all types of plants and vegetation and everything else. No one cared until 2 minutes ago, and then it went on Facebook. So if there is a way to integrate both at no additional cost, because you guys know that if you run up more costs to try to integrate that, then you guys didn't stay with your budget and you're just wasting our tax money. So if it can be done at no additional cost, then sure, let's do it. But if not, give the kids that have been active, give the families that have been active in the soccer what they need and for the future. Because I'm active down at St. Mary's City Hall. We know the growth is coming. Kids and families are coming. We need more growth. Now, as far as this whole CRC regional coaches, if you remember, my late father tried to get rides to his doctor's appointments and everything else, but now they can take kids to play putt-putt, and he couldn't get one ride to physical therapy. I call that's a big load of stuff that Commissioner Brandt, you would take out there to the landfill. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Come on up.
Please state your name and what city you live in.
Sorry, I'm short. Hi, my name is Jenny Rivers. I live at 317 Lake Forest in Kingsland. So I am a transplant here. My husband has been stationed here 3 times. This is where we are actively retiring this year from the Navy. I've been a part of Camden Soccer since 2016, and I've been an active member of the board since 2017. I spend every Saturday of the soccer season on those fields. I love soccer and I love providing it to the children. All I ask is if we are going to put the money and invest the money into the soccer complex, and it's already been decided that's what's going to happen, let's do that. I understand that there's a motion to revamp this mini golf. I've never seen anyone out there. Last Saturday was the first time I saw people out there clearing it. We had not heard about anyone wanting to revamp it, at least not myself personally or most of the members of my board. If there can be a compromise where both can coexist and the parking can be safe for my players that are out there, my 300 plus kids that come and go on a Saturday, great, I'm all for it. If it can't be done and my parking still be safe and my soccer mission met, then I would not support it. But if it can all be done together, then I'm all for it, because I do think the children here need more activities. That's all I have to say.
Okay. We got 2.5 minutes. Anybody else wish to speak? Come on up, sir.
Excellent discussion. So we had the prayer and the invocation that needs to be subtracted from the 30 minutes on the clock.
No. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Lowe. I'm a soccer coach out at the complex. And one of the things that I do is I do travel soccer. And we go out to these different tournaments. I've been trying for 4 years to get tournaments here. And one of my biggest problem we have is we don't have parking. A tournament normally has about 30 teams. A full family, we would eat up that parking lot right away. We would not be able to accommodate the amount of teams that would be here. So that's why I've been pushing and having talks. We got the way we got our field set up would be roughly about 8 fields we would use for a tier 2 tournament. And we would not be able to accommodate that. That would help the county because these teams would come in. We would generate revenue. And normally through challenge soccer, it's a good turnout. And that's what I've been trying to get here for 4 years. So with the expanded parking, generated income, it's a win-win for Camden County.
We got 43 seconds. So we'll close the public comment section. Any commissioners got anything they wish to say?
I do, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I want to explain to you guys how this actually came about. I guess I am the initiator of all of this meeting tonight. About a year ago, I went out to the soccer complex because I had heard how bad it was and how it was in disarray. I got Bug Johnson to take me out there. He showed me the sprinkler system. That was the first thing we saw. It's in a Kwanzaa hut. It sits there and it's inside. It's all rusted out and it just looks horrible. So we took that and we tied it straight into the, well, I went back later on that day after our maintenance department did that. And I thought, I'm going to sprinkle this field. It was dry. The grass was dying. It was in horrible, horrible shape. So I went and cracked the valve. And then I walked over and I watched the sprinklers come on. And they ran on very well. They were all over the field. Lasted for about 2 or 3 minutes. And it stopped. So I turned around and I looked behind me and the pipe had blown completely in two. It was too much pressure for that Schedule 8. Schedule 80 probably. I'm not even sure how big it was, but it blew it in two. So like a nutcase, I had to turn around and walk back through that big gush of water, got soaking wet, got the valve off, and walked away. Then we had to come back and put it back together. That was my first experience with the soccer complex at Camden County High School, or at the soccer, where the soccer played. I'm a little nervous, so I don't know if you can tell that by now, but that's okay. But anyway, that started me trying to figure out a way to get that soccer complex fixed. When I first came on as a commissioner, all of our parks were in disarray. We were working on them, trying to bring them up to speed. Every meeting we would hear how sorry we were and how we weren't doing anything, but yet we were trying. So we decided to look at this, and I'm the one that pushed it. Somebody came to a meeting with an idea of reviving the putt-putt golf course. My idea was, as a businessman, because I am never against any business going up, ever. That's not me. But as a businessman, I knew we had to do SWOT analysis. We had to get a business plan and say exactly what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. I have, until now, not heard anything about it. It kind of just went by the wayside. It stopped. The other day we met out there with a bunch of engineers and we asked them to get us another 150 parking spots so that we can keep those kids off of the street and in the actual lot itself. Now, I don't think that it's just a putt-putt golf. If we could use that property for parking, absolutely, if we need it. I think that Kwanzaa hut and all those tractors that are over there on the other side need to be moved and something done with them as well. It worries me that a kid climbing those tractors could get hurt too. We as a Board of Commissioners have to take into consideration all the liability that takes place. We already have almost $50 million worth of lawsuits against us. And it needs to stop. So yes, we took some engineers out there. We asked them to look at this and tell us how we can do this, how we can make this happen. And that's what they're doing. They're doing that even now. They said it would take about a month to a month and a half to get all these done, to get everything there. And then they're going to bring it back to us and we can look at it with the soccer folks, with the PSA, with everybody that needs to be involved in making that place the greatest soccer complex in this region. That's the way we looked at it. That's what we wanted. That's what we talked with Mike about. It didn't have anything to do with bulldozing anything. It had something to do with refurbishing and making it so that we can use it and do it appropriately. So I am the one that did that. I did the whole thing. Ben didn't do it. Trevor didn't do it. Laney didn't do it. And Jim didn't do it. I did that. It was my baby. And I want to still see that. So that we were told that Disney World wanted to come here until they saw what we had. And I agree with you guys. I agree wholeheartedly. We've got to finish out our parks. We've got to make these things work. But it does take all of us working together. This pulling apart nearly drives me completely bonkers because we don't succeed and we don't do anything. This community, when I was a kid, did everything together. If I did something wrong, my mama knew it before I ever got home because the school teacher called her and told her, or somebody else did. We were a community. And I think that we need to become a community again. I'm not trying to do anything against anybody. And my friend back there sent me a text today that said, well, Solomon, are you going to split the baby in half? I don't know what to do. I do know if we want to move forward, we can move forward. I played on that golf course when it was a par 3 night course. I wish you'd put that back. Hallelujah. If you go out there right now and start putting those poles back and build me another 17 at TPC out there, I'd go out there tonight and play it. But that's not going to happen. Got to go forward. Got to go forward. I've called James. I asked him to see if he could find us some land. Put us a golf course, wherever you want it. It's your business. You're the ones doing it. Do it. Go build it. 20 years ago, I built a company called Turner Brothers, and nobody helped me. Nobody gave me land. Nobody gave me any money. I went to my bank with intangible assets, and they laughed me out of the bank because they wanted something tangible. Well, folks, if you really want something, you got to work together to get it. All this other stuff has got to stop. And that's my prayer. So if you got to blame somebody, go on Facebook tonight. I'm wide open. Lay it on me. Put it in the newspaper. Write editorials. Do whatever you want to. But I'm telling you, we need that soccer complex. With or without the golf course. With or without it. But we need it. And when they get these engineers in here and they bring it to us, then we look at it and we make good decisions. So I just wanted to share that with you. I know you want to take up an offering, Jim? He always wants to take up an offering when I get through. But, thank you, John. But I am passionate about it, and I still say we can do this if we want to.
All right. Any other commissioner got anything?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the most significant thing out of this is, first of all, to recognize the efforts of the soccer club. You've been battling it. You have done it for the kids. We don't know how many lives have been saved because they had a mission and a purpose. And that coincides with what Ms. Gray was talking about. And I need to ask her the question of 9 suicides this far into 2024, only 5.5 months, or what's that 9 compared to 6 last year? That's scary. So I'm sorry, 9 so far this year, only less than half the year gone compared to 6. Folks, we got a problem. We got a big problem. All right. So recognizing the soccer club and what you've done is perfectly appropriate. We are not interested in doing anything to interfere with that program. That needs to continue. I support that wholeheartedly. I absolutely do. But it's not, as it was pointed out several times during these presentations, it's not an either or. Nobody is trying to take anything away from the soccer club. This does not affect what you're trying to do there. What we're trying to say is, why tear down the par 3 golf course when all you need to do is look somewhere else on that piece of land and put the parking someplace else? Leave that facility and let's see if it can be developed back to its highest and best use. A comparison was made between the little putt-putt golf course at the state park and this one. That's apples to oranges. This one has features. The par 3 golf course was world class. It has elevations. It has rock features. It has water features. If I'm not mistaken, the one out at the Crooked River is just basically a plain, flat surface, unchallenging. Am I wrong about that? Somebody would need to correct me. It's apples to oranges. So I think there is a market for it. It can coexist. It can be a situation where while some of the siblings are playing soccer, some of the other siblings can be playing putt-putt golf with their other parent or some trusted parents to go and do that. Let's explore that possibility. Let's have something year-round at that putt-putt golf course that might not be a year-round program at soccer. I'm not a soccer aficionado, so I don't know what the season is, how it's played. Let's have both. Why not compromise, not take anything away from soccer, not take anything away from putt-putt golf? It's not a challenge. It's a cooperative opportunity, and we ought to think about it and take that opportunity. Martin, now you can take an offering up if you want to. Thank you so much.
You wouldn't get anything.
What year was this course built? Do we know?
I don't know.
Do we roughly know what year it was played?
That's, when I was playing the par 3, it was there then. So it had to have been around 2000.
Okay.
It was shut down in 2015.
2015.
It was made. It was 2000. Yeah, I thought it was there when I played.
Yeah. What?
All right,
I believe
that's enough from the audience right now.
What concerns me a little bit is just the fact that, this was built roughly 25 years ago and it's been sitting vacant for almost 10 years. And talking about, I keep hearing about these features, these waterfalls, the boulders. What concerns me a little bit is from a liability standpoint, as Commissioner Turner mentioned earlier about, having, before this gets fully vetted out from an engineering perspective, about having citizens out there and get, potentially injured due to some of these features that, could potentially be unsafe to be around. So I don't know if there's any kind of action we can do to vet that out. Meanwhile, while we go through this engineering process.
Are you saying that you want to declare a moratorium on anybody being there? What are you saying, that we can't go forward, Trevor?
Well, I'm saying it's definitely a concern with these features and boulders. I haven't been out there to the course specifically, but how many boulders are out there? I keep hearing about this waterfall. How tall is the waterfall?
I don't know. I have not walked the property, and it was mentioned that nobody has seen anybody doing anything. They started on the back side of it.
Well, I got a major problem. You talk about liability. Our liability insurance is what now? $350,000 deductible?
Yep.
per instance.
Per instance. We've got an insurance guy that went out there without permission, put the county in a liability state that shouldn't have happened, all for political reasons. That shouldn't have happened. So yeah, I think they should be barred from going out there without permission, because you're putting the county in a bad situation, and you should know better.
And maybe the two can coexist, and I'm all for that, but I think we've got to go through the process and follow the proper channels to see if that's a valid option. Initially I looked at some of the parcels adjoining that, And there's a, I believe, 1.99 acre parcel on the south, which I saw some renderings of that could be used for additional parking. So I checked, I looked from an aerial standpoint and it looked to be wetlands. And sure enough, I checked the National Wetland Inventory map and it was completely wetlands, as you can see on the survey there. So there is a process to mitigate wetlands, but the credits have gone really expensive here in the last recent years. I believe for local governments, there's an option to do land swaps, but all that starts getting really tedious, and it's going to be a pretty lengthy process to figure out what's possible and what's not with some type of engineering concept. But what concerns me the most is just the liability of all these boulders and people working around them. I mean, what happens if a boulder falls on somebody? I mean, it's not safe the way it is now, and that's what concerns me the most. It's not to say that the two can't exist in the future going forward.
Can we agree to say, let's don't destroy anything until we explore all of that?
Absolutely. I think that would be reasonable.
Yeah, that's a major concern, is let's stop right where we are before we put a bulldozer in there and destroy something. Let's investigate all of that. I haven't heard that we were putting a bulldozer in there. That's old news.
Well, the way that comment came about was I was out there discussing it with Cody and Don. And this is why we're here tonight is they wanted a meeting. So we're here. They were asking me why we haven't made any progress on the park yet, updating the park. And I basically said, what do you want me to do? Put a bulldozer on here Monday to start tearing it down? That's where that comment came from. Because we do need to start as soon as possible on all the parks. I want all the parks upgraded, not just the soccer. I want the baseball fields upgraded. I want the regular parks upgraded. We need to do it all. The county has proposed doing a master park as part of SPLOST. The cities don't want to do that. The cities want to rehab what they got, which is great. It needs to be done. But on some of the ball fields like Howard Peoples and the Lions Club, there's no place to put additional parking. We've got areas at the soccer field we can do some additional parking. We can't mess with the wetlands. That's going to get too expensive. And if it gets too expensive, we got to cut back on what needs to be done to the park. So.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
For the county's liability's sake, I think that if nobody should be on the property till we get renderings or whatever, it needs to stop. It shouldn't be nobody out there. We got enough liability hanging over our head already. We don't need to add to it.
I agree with that. Pursuant to Official Code of Georgia, Section 16.721B2, we can invoke that. The public is hereby given notice that any person who enters the premises commonly known as the Pro 3 mini golf at the Camden County Soccer Complex without prior authorization from the county administrator shall be considered to be a trespasser as defined in that code section. Any person apprehended or detained under such conditions will be referred to for prosecution. I'm all in favor of that.
I'll go.
Any more comments?
Good.
All right, no more comments from the board. We'll open it back up for public comments. We'll limit you to 15 minutes total and 3 minutes per speaker. Any taker. Come on up, sir.
Yes, thank you. It's David Smith again, 134 Dogwood Circle. I request from Mr. Casey that you take that comment that this was done for political reasons, considering qualification was in February. The work on this started in January. So I request that you take that comment back. Thank you.
Sir, thank you. Come on up.
Noah Ring from Kingsland. First off, kind of felt like you guys wanted to do that before you even got here. Nobody just has that code sitting around. But one of the things that this guy over here mentioned a little bit ago that I think is the most common sense solution is to put the lighting in, which decreases the amount of time people need to be there, which would decrease the amount of parking you need. One of the things that whenever I went to UGA, one of the things that whenever I brought people to my hometown, they say, what's there to do? I say drive 30 minutes north to 30 minutes south because there's nothing for us to do here. And so I think that we need to have a vision moving forward of how we can turn Camden County into a place where we don't have to go sit in parking lots and eat Sonic or something, but we have stuff to do. And so I think that, hey, let's put the par 3 course back there. I'd be on with that, Martin. And so what I think we need to do is we need to focus on building the quality of our parks, whether it's mini golf, pickleball, whatever it may be. That way our kids have something to do, because 9 is way too high. When I graduated in 2019, we lost 2 kids that class had killed themselves. And so whatever we're going to do, we need to make sure we bring the most amount of people. To my knowledge, and again, I never played soccer, I wasn't that athletic, is that soccer is about 5 months out of the year, typically on Saturdays. But what are we going to do the other 7 months with the other 6 days a week? We need something that people can do every day, no matter if it's January, December, anywhere in between. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Anybody else? Come on up.
Hey, Michael Lake again. Just to clarify, we usually run things on the complex pretty much 9 months a year. The times that we're off of it are generally winter, kind of late that early December to mid-January. But during the summer, we have camps and training and other things going on. So we generally run non-tennis, but we're not, obviously, we're good stewards of the resource, and that's why we're there. We've kept it going this long in the current condition it's in. But just to clarify, we are out there for an extended period of time. Lights do help us tremendously. They increase our field percentage 30% without ever having to expand. I brought that up when they were doing I think, Mr. Casey, you were actually in that meeting. I brought it up when they had the consultants come in. But we are for the community, and we do run that, when it's nice out and the gnats don't carry us off. Also, length of time for games and stuff like that, we have to be out there. We're all volunteers. So even now, our games run to 4:30. It gets kind of long for us, just to let y'all know. It's all volunteer. Nobody's being paid about there. It's long days for us. So running at 9 o'clock at night, games at 9 o'clock at night is probably not going to happen. All practices are the main concerns. So.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Turner. Artie Jones, 241 Fairways Edge Drive, St. Mary's, Georgia. And first of all, let me commend Mr. Turner for the step that he took in trying to really give us a good soccer program. I served 5 terms as a county commissioner. Never served in this building because my time was between 1979 in 1996. I started the first countywide recreation department because my son couldn't play football, baseball, and other sports with the white kids. I started the first Humane Society. And I'm saying this because there are a lot of firsts. There are a lot of people that stuck on stupid when it comes to figuring out what's best for the community. You need to be in the community to know about the community. Like I said, I commend you for wanting to get the soccer program in a good place, but we need to ask ourselves, will destroying one thing help another? There's no reason why you can't do both. And we had a lot of dedicated people 5 months ago in the woods out there on weekends trying to clean that up, not asking anybody for anything. And I think if you got with these people and tried to work things out, we could make it better for everybody. So listen to the people and put yourself in a frame of mind of trying to find out how to get along rather than how to keep contention.
Ma'am, did you want to speak?
So my name is Kristen Clark Hassel. I'm at 108 Plantation Court, St. Mary's, Georgia. I have many children. I actually had a few play at that soccer field before. So my concern is the mental health here. 9 suicides is ridiculous. There's absolutely nothing for my children to do in this county. We don't have the money to go to, what is it, Camden Unleashed or whatever the axe thrown place is. If you're in St. Mary's and you have soccer, then I'm assuming the Kingsland people come into St. Mary's to play soccer. But with football, you can go St. Mary's, Kingsland, Woodbine, wherever. So how come soccer can't also have one of these parks that is, I guess, run down, refurbished and made into another soccer field for maybe Kingsland or maybe Woodbine or, you know, something of that nature, so that those parks aren't going to waste, because I'm assuming probably our tax dollars pay for that too. So that's my concern. And then if you have a miniature golf, maybe not everybody wants to play soccer. I mean, no hurt here for anyone that's a soccer fan, but maybe some people are golfers. I mean, we've got the PGA tournament right down the road, you know, a couple hours away. There's a lot of golfers here. It's something that the whole entire family can do and participate, not just one child, you know, watching one child play soccer or anything like that, but the whole entire family can participate. When you have tourists that come up, they can go to a soccer and a, you know, miniature golf place. My concern though is you talk about liability. Well, when I'm going home, I don't know if the commissioners are in charge of this or not, but I'm just going to throw it out there since part of the community is here. We have a major issue with Winding Road. I am terrified about my son being on his freaking motorcycle and getting hit, or myself getting hit, because there's no darn light there. And you're talking about bringing in people into this county. Well, we need a light there. We need the pavement to be done with, you know, I want to take paint over there, white paint and yellow paint on Winding Road from the hospital to my house and redo it, because I don't even know where the lane is. I'm just saying, if you want liability, that's a huge liability issue right there. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Hayden Bishop from Woodbine, Georgia. As I've been playing soccer since I was 6, I've moved from Camden to Nassau to now Florida Elite in Jacksonville. I'm driving an hour and 30 minutes to get to practice and then from practice. I get home late. I still have to do homework. I'm in 8th grade. Bringing kids here to Camden and keeping them here is a great thing as mental, and if you want to make it to collegiate, as grades are a big part of making it in collegiate athletes. And for me, driving at 3 hours, that's a big toll on my homework and schoolwork. Thank you.
Ryan Levy at Paddlehorn Road again. I just guess follow up on a couple of the comments. Keep in mind that the soccer organization is an entirely volunteer based. So having games at different parks all across the county would be a burden on the volunteer staff. It's hard enough to get volunteers out there on a Saturday, let alone all over the county. So I know that'd be a very difficult thing. But I also challenge all of us. I heard, you know, if we used all of the fields out there, there's 8 fields. And that's assuming we're playing 11 versus 11. But we use, you know, we've got 6-year-olds out there. There's only 4 or 5 on the field. There might be only 6 or 7 on the team. All right, so we don't need hundreds and hundreds of parking spots. If you had all 8 fields filled, right, that's 16 teams, max roster, 15 players per team, you're talking 240 kids. I'm assuming a fuel carpool. So as the engineers are doing their plans, let's keep in mind 8 fields are out there, so the parking needs to match the fields. I totally understand that we need more parking, but again, parking should match 8 fields, and some of those fields are for the younger kids. And I also challenge our Camden Soccer Club. I hope if we put $4 million of taxpayer renovations into the park, that the soccer club is also going to need to grow. And I say that as a volunteer standing here offering my help. Okay, I know how that starts. Yes, sir. So, I would hope, again, as a taxpayer, regardless, the Camden Soccer Club has to grow. And again, it's a volunteer organization. PSA, different story, right? We won't talk about the PSA and the way they run youth sports, okay? Our youth soccer program, which is not run by the PSA, is run by a volunteer organization, does a phenomenal job. But again, if we're going to $4 million into it, the program's going to have to grow, and I'm right here to volunteer to help with that. So, exactly, that's why I'm up here saying it. So, thank you.
Good evening. My name's Gordon Whitetree, live 278 Vicky Lane. I've been with the soccer club since 2002. I'm the guy who goes out and lines all the fields. I lay out the fields. Friday nights, I spend my 4 hours every night on Friday nights setting the fields up for soccer games the next day. So I've listened to a lot of Camden County football games from the soccer field because I can hear the speakers. But again, I think the last time that putt-putt was relevant, actually working, my daughter was working a concession stand out of that building, and she actually handed out the golf clubs and the golf balls, and that was 14 years ago. So again, though, but some other people have said that both of them can coexist. I'm all for it. When we used to go to the different soccer places, my oldest son, we played travel ball, and we went to North Carolina, out to Pensacola, and played in soccer tournaments. All the boys always come back, hey, coach, remember, did you see that? You see that thing? We could be known for the soccer complex that's got a golf course or putt-putt. Well, that's what I got to say.
Thank you.
Mr. Gordon, could you put some lines on some roads for us also?
All right, we got a minute left.
Rob Moore, 509 Westgate Circle. Commission, since spaceport's kind of lagging, if the putt-putt is no more, please fast track any entrepreneur that's trying to serve the putt-putt community and go ahead and give them a liquor license, because this isn't regular TPC. Well, no, there's liquor there too. So just let them, I know that Councilman Jones is out there. I know you would abstain because of the liquor license, sir. So just go ahead and fast track that. But again, if they can both coexist, fine. If there's too much of an expense or something that was left to the wild, then return it back to the wild, and let's take care of the soccer kids. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, we're out of time.
I resent not being able to speak at a public meeting because you have an arbitrary time limit.
You got 44 seconds.
I'm sorry, I have 3 minutes like everyone else has had, including multiple speakers who have spoken twice. And I'm going to take my 3 minutes. You can have me arrested if you like.
Well, that's fine.
This is a contrived controversy. I was told 6 months ago by a member of tonight's Board of Commissioners that you were going to put a bulldozer out there to bulldoze the golf course. If you want me to call your name out, I'll call your name out. I heard lies tonight from the commission. I've heard decisions made tonight by people who have no idea what a boulder is at the golf course or how high the 10-foot high waterfall is. I've heard from a county manager that they refuse.
All right, then we'll get a motion for adjournment.
So moved, Mr. Chairman. Second.
All in favor? All right. Those opposed? We're done.